So I'm thinking of going to the Shake Rack Festival, which is pretty close to my house. Probably less than a mile, a few blocks, but it's raining and been pretty much raining all day, and it closes at 5. It's a little after 2 now, so uh now first I thought, well, it'll be good for you to go. You need to get out of the house. You need to do something. Maybe after I'm done making this video, the rain would have let up. It's beautiful though. I just don't want to get stranded in a downpour. But I'm just having a rough time with all this stuff, with the vegan stuff and everything. It's not that eating vegan really isn't that hard. And not that I'm 100% or perfect. But overall, pretty much, I've been pretty much meat and dairy free, meat, dairy, eggs, and that's not really tough. And God knows, I've found plenty to eat because I'm not really losing any weight, that's for sure. But that's not the reason why I did it. It's just having your eyes open and realized you're just surrounded and are a part of cruelty and or exploitation of sentient beings, animals and humans. And now that I opened up this Pandora's box, now I gotta look at the coffee I drink. It's not fair trade. And frankly, fair trade coffee, or supposedly fairly traded coffee, I guess there's a discrepancy. You gotta look for the fair trade certified symbol. If it says fairly traded, that could still be misleading. And it's like $13 a pound. I can't afford it. And I am a coffee addict, so I don't know. That'll be next on my list. And fair trade bananas. I never ate so many bananas in my life than when I became vegan. All the smoothies and that. And you find out how people are exploited. Human beings are exploited. And not just the animals, obviously, in the vegan world, but also you want to, I want to be as ethical as I know how to be, and it's hard. And I'm sad. I'm saddened because, like I said in my last video, then you look at all the food. I'm sorry, but I do blame huge corporations. They have become really evil. I mean, it seems like there is hardly anything that isn't tainted somehow by either outright animal cruelty. We know the meat and dairy industry, but even people that aren't exploited, and especially children around the world, halfway around the world, getting my coffee beans. But not just my coffee beans, you got migrant workers where exploitation and abuse is rampant that pick our fruits and vegetables. I don't even know where to begin. It's hard not to become misanthropic and just not really like humans at all. And I'm one of them. And up to recently, I just kept my head in the sand. And frankly, it was a little more comfortable than to have to come to terms with all this. And also I'm thinking, oh, sure, it'd be good for me to get out of the house. It's still raining. I need to come back in. I'm going to come back in. I can get out of the house, but what's going to be at the fair? I mean, I'm in the fair in the South in Georgia. I was thinking I might make a slight, exception and eat fried green tomatoes. Probably knowing that the batter or whatever it's dipped in uses egg. So that's not vegan. But I think that was probably the closest thing that would be vegan I could eat there. So what am I going there for? To buy little, little things I can't afford. Little homemade candles and shit. And if it wasn't raining, I probably would walk down there anyway. But it is. And the longer I wait to leave the house, the harder it is. Yeah, it's just hard to get over how everything's tainted with animal cruelty, with human cruelty and exploitation. Where to begin? What's so fucking great about the human race? What's so great? Yeah, we made a lot of great inventions and inceptions and all this stuff, but doesn't the destructive nature that we have, seem to inherently have, kind of outweigh that? With all the wars and all the atrocities committed against, our fellow man, and of course the atrocities against animals, against living beings that have never done anything to us. Talk about innocent. I saw this wonderful talk on YouTube, and it's by a psychologist. What was her name? Dr. Melanie Joyce. She's a social psychologist. And she's also a vegan animal rights activist, an advocate. And she really explains very well the psychology behind what we do and how it's so easy for good people. I was a good person more than 2 months ago before I went vegan. I loved animals, but it was so easy for me to block that part out of my mind. And it's not just because I'm just a person that likes to be in denial. It's because society sets us up that way. It's set up that way for a reason, because meat and dairy industry is very powerful, very profitable. And if all of us were to wake up and go, oh my God, like we're doing now, it would stop. What would they do? It's really built on a house of cards, she said. It really is. She really is a eloquent speaker and can talk about it more than I can. And her name is, Dr. Melanie Joy. The Reasons Why We Eat Meat, something like that. So I don't know how to leave links and all that, but I would strongly suggest you watch it, because she explains in such an articulate, eloquent way why we do what we do. We have a carnistic society, and how we're born and bred into this carnistic society, and how it's easy to see, especially like in our society, the thought of eating dogs and cats is appalling to us. That's why we can point the fingers at Korea and China and say, the horrible meat industry, the horrible Korean and Chinese government allowing this. And it is horrible. I don't want any sentient beings to suffer. But then we can go around and kill a pig who's every bit as intelligent and sweet and wonderful as a dog, but see them as food. It's okay because it's socially acceptable. Do you know that, pigs are just as smart as dogs? Do you know that pigs, even as full grown, they have the mentality of a 3-year-old child? That's why, animals are like that. They're very childlike. That's why it's easier, that's why they don't know how to fight back when we abuse them the way they do. They don't know how, because they're like children. Any more than a 3-year-old child would know how to fight back. But they still feel pain. And I think this, for being a new vegan, this is, very normal to feel this way. Because it's like, how could I have been blind for so long? And she explains it very well, how good people could not deny the worst atrocities. It happened in the Holocaust. People just blinded themselves. Not that they were bad people, but out of fear or whatever, refused to see what was going on. Like the people who lived near Auschwitz, just they had to smell the flesh and know something was going on, but they had to find a way of tuning it out, because they felt powerless to stop it. And probably so scared to even try to intervene, in fear for their lives and their families' lives to intervene. That's understandable. There's a movie that's really good because it explains this. It's called like The Good Man or something like that. And about a man, a German man, who becomes a Nazi, but not because he's a horrible man. He even had Jewish friends. He was a professor. But because he was coerced into it, then once he was in it, he was scared to get out. Because if he spoke against it, he was afraid for his life and his family's life. Now, we don't have so much of that there. We're mostly just marginalized, and we're not going to, thank God we're not in fear when vegans speak out. But my point is how good people can do atrocious things or be a part of atrocities and be in such denial. And I thought that movie explained it very well, because he was a good man, and you saw how he fell down this rabbit hole and he didn't know how to get out. He didn't know how to get out safely. Then he was worried about his family. If he spoke out, the Nazis would go, oh, you're turning your back on us. Well, how about we take your children? I mean, so you understood that. But you can understand how we're born and raised in this society, how we're so much have our heads in the sand. So anyway, yeah, Dr. Melanie Joy, Why We Eat Meat. She coined the term carnism, how we were born and bred into carnism. And then once we realize we're in it, especially when our eyes are open to the horrors that are done to the animals right in our own backyard, literally, I mean, probably all over the state, there's probably tons of slaughterhouses, that it's easy to close our eyes and think somehow that pretty packaged meat just somehow was born in a cellophane package. It wasn't. It's easy to dissociate that it was a living being with feelings. Unless you're allowed to open your heart, it can't just be a cerebral thing. Because the whole ideal of carnism isn't logical, it's illogical. So to try to dismantle it by logic isn't as effective as, people getting you on a one-to-one basis. And I have to admit, I'm frustrated. So my knee-jerk reaction is to tell people, don't you understand what's going on? I did that earlier with a group of people. And then I felt bad, but I just had to say something. But this was like a yoga group online. It's through webcam. And I said, isn't part of yoga doing as little harm as we possibly know how to do? Then I said, well, what about factory farming? How can we be enlightened spiritual beings and then continue to eat animals? Do you know how horrible it is? Of course, he let me speak about a minute and a half and said, well, thank you, Adrian. And then we live in such an insane society where the insanity is the norm. The insanity to eat animals is so normal that those of us that speak out against it and say, God, don't you see something wrong here? Then we're the kooks, for speaking out against the insanity. Then they brand us insane and, those dang vegans, and I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go for now.